How's it going, boys? So today we're gonna be doing something that we have not done in quite some time now. It's a discussion video, and we're gonna be discussing the overpowered cards that currently should be banned and why I think they should be banned. So we're gonna start off with the companions, obviously, and then go over a bunch of overpowered cards and some problematic cards. And not everything here you see is problematic or overpowered. Well, they're all a little bit problematic at the bare minimum, but you know, it's just an FYI so you don't instantaneously freak out. So let's start with the companions. The companions are the hot topic, and as luck would have it, because this is actually good for my topic, someone in Discord posted MTG Goldfish channel discussion on overpowered companions or something, or are they overpowered? But anyway, not gonna be rehashing those points because the things I want to talk about are completely different, but they did bring out one extremely interesting statistic that I would never have brought out because I simply don't care enough. All 10 companions have won tournaments. All 10 companions are in active usage, which is absolutely insanely mind-boggling. First of all, because I have not seen half of these companions actually being played, but if it is like that, it is like that. And that is honestly scary. If a single text on a card is used, and it's used 100% of the time, that means you have a problem. That means whatever you made is too good. And companions are too good for multiple reasons, and we're going to be covering these reasons. Now, it doesn't matter what kind of companion that we're actually going to be looking at, it's a broad term spectrum on all the companions. So, the companions are essentially like this. You fulfill their condition, and they're in the sideboard. Well, it's not exactly the sideboard, but they're in the side. Nothing can touch them until you play them. And on average, every companion is overpowered because it is absolute 100% of the time guaranteed value. And that is a huge issue. That is absolutely a huge issue. Well, almost every single one of these companions is guaranteed value. But obviously the most problematic is Garugamesh, things like Yorion, the Sky Nomad, and Lurus, probably the three most well and played companions by far. And they have pretty much instantaneous value except Lurus. But the Lurus honestly has even instantaneous value before you have 3 mana. Because you know that you're playing against a Lurus deck, and Lurus can be used as a freebie resurrection mechanic. So if you wipe the board and you're without mana, enemy plays a Lurus and gets back what he wants, or makes Lurus immortal, as we have done in one of my other videos. It's a complete nightmare to deal with. So, you know, even if you want to argue that Lurus does not have instantaneous value, I'm gonna argue that Lurus has instantaneous value starting from turn 1, just because you're playing against a Lurus that can be dropped anytime. So that's a huge problem in my opinion, but that's mostly specific to Lurus. The companion issue is pretty much this. Companions are built with a function in mind, and that function can be easily taken advantage. And again, my favorite example is probably Yorion, Sky Nomad. We made a companion deck which did not even use him as a companion, because in my opinion that's honestly a waste. Because what happens when Yorion dies? Well, you can't exactly get the Yorion back unless you pop Elspeth and get him back like that. But in all honesty, I think it's just not exactly that efficient. When you play a Yorion, all you need to do previously to make him 100% value is drop the single thing that is a permanent and has a when it hits the field effect attached to it. When you do that, instantaneous value. And with Yorion, usually you get instantaneous value from like 3 or 4 cards even. And that is the problem with the companions in general. You get too much flat out value. And with Garugamesh, we made a deck that, you know, if we live until the turn we drop Garugamesh, chances are we instantaneously win because we made a self-mill deck with this bad boy. And it, well, did we brick a single time? When you read the effect, it doesn't seem so strong, but considering there are a bunch of cards that fit perfectly for these effects, well, companions are a problem because of that. Because there's too many strong cards. They're strong on their own, but there's far too many strong cards already existing in the game that benefit from these companion effects. And that's the general problem with companions. They are 100% reliable, and they are 100% guaranteed to create value that leaves your enemy with a -1 or 2 at their value score. So that's a huge problem. And they empower all kind of decks, you know. For example, Lurus, I bet it's 100%, I bet this was 100% non-intentional, that Lurus magically, randomly empowered cycling decks. Oh yes, Lurus cycling decks are a thing if you did not know, and they're honestly pretty strong, because again, cycling. And Lurus allows cycling. So yeah, that's a pretty interesting thing. Well, honestly, it's not an interesting thing. I think it's bad, because let's be honest, how, in the last like 4 videos, how many non-companion decks have I played against? Not a lot, if barely any. Because companions, again, are 100% value. And small costs like, you know, having impermanents that are only 1 or 2 cost is not exactly a huge issue if you're making an aggro deck. An aggro deck usual average mana costs is 1 to 2. That means at the worst case scenario, you're skipping only like 1 or 2 cards. So again, the downsides of the companions are not strong enough in any shape, way, or form to alleviate the upsides of the companions. Now, a good example that we compare with this thing is Bolas Citadel. Yes, everyone's favorite black Citadel thing. Now, Bolas Citadel is instantaneously very strong. Imagine if this card could be a companion. Imagine if you could only put 1 copy of this card in your deck, and you could play it. Now, at least Bolas Citadel has a drawback, and it's the simple fact that you need to pay life whenever you play something. But again, there are cards that can circumvent this drawback without any problems. How many life gain decks have I made that abuse Bolas Citadel? And when we drop it, we have so many combos to gain life from it that the drawback of the life cost is completely irrelevant. That the only bad side is like drawing a Bolas Citadel and the next thing you can play again is just a Bolas Citadel, which you will usually never do. And champions alleviate this problem. And again, in situations like Yorion, you can just put 4 of them and not even use it as a companion. Because in Yorion's case, which is my favorite example because of this very specific reason, is all the cards you would put in a Yorion deck are on their own enough powerful to not need Yorion as a companion, but to use Yorion as a 4-of card. Which is, well, just flat out insane. Admittedly, this also just proves that Yorion is an inherently broken and overpowered card on its own, because there's never reason to not put a Yorion in a deck that uses a lot of permanents. And that's now going to be the issue of these cards. Well, at least some of these cards. So that was pretty much all about the companions, what I don't like about them. But now let's talk about some problematic cards and 2 overpowered cards. Now, currently in the format, I think that Embercleave and Agent of Treachery are definitely overpowered and flat out just too good. So, what I define as an overpowered card is the conceptual how valuable is that card. For example, take Agent of Treachery. If you're gonna make a deck that has anything to do with getting a lot of mana fast, there is absolutely no reason ever to not include Agent of Treachery in your deck. Because you're ramping up, and Agent of Treachery is super powerful. Right? Again, as soon as you're making a ramp deck, there is absolutely no not moral reason to not include Agent of Treachery in the deck. If you're making a Graveyard Resurrection deck, there's no reason... Discard Resurrection deck. Again, there's no reason to not include Agent of Treachery, because simply put, it is just flat out that good. If you're making anything that bounces things, again, same thing. There's no reason to not include Agent of Treachery, unless it's a Yorion deck where you only put like in 1 or 2 Agent of Treacheries, because those decks will not have that much ramp, and they will not be throwing their cards into the graveyard. So there, it's not maybe that good. But again, it's still even good there, but it's not perfect because it does not fulfill the main requirements of Agent of Treachery, aka a ramp or resurrection. And Embercleave again is as good, if not better, for the exact same reasons but in different archetypes. If you're making an aggro deck, and that deck has even the most slightest smidgen of red, there's no reason to not include Embercleave, not Agent of Treachery. Embercleave is completely overpowered. It can be dropped as fast as turn 3, and at turn 4 it can do something like 12 damage plus with Onyx. And Embercleave even makes a 1-1 into a 4-4 damage wise. At the bare minimum, Embercleave is 200+% damage boost. And that's not counting the fact that it has trample and double strike. Well, actually it does count the fact that it has double strike. But double strike also means first strike and trample. Which means this card prevents blockers, and it usually kills said blockers. Which is again a whole different amount of insanity. There's never a reason to not include 4 Embercleaves in a deck that is an aggro-based deck that has red in it. For some decks, it's even arguable maybe it's good to just splash in those 2 red lands to just get Embercleave inside of it. Because again, it's simply that good. You're making any kind of deck that hits face, and it's a relatively aggro to slash mid-range deck. Congratulations, you are using Embercleave, because there is absolutely not a single reason why not to use Embercleave. And those are the 2 cards that I want to see banned in the format. Now there's also Oko, which some people want to be unbanned and whatnot. I am personally a little bit tossed on Oko, because you see, I am a control player by default. And Oko came out in a set where there were other 2 billion planeswalkers. So every set I made pretty much had an inbuilt counter to planeswalkers. And I didn't use creatures, so essentially I didn't care about Oko that much. As a control player, I never really cared about Oko almost at all. Sure, he was annoying, but he was not the bane of existence. I honestly think Oko got only banned because it was, well, he was extremely good against aggro decks, because again, suddenly everything is a 3/3 blocker, and for an aggro deck, well, that's pretty devastating most of the times. So yeah, I am personally on the mind that I don't exactly care if Oko gets banned or unbanned, because I like the 3/3 elk memes. Let's be honest here. I just like them and I want them back, so Oko, please come back. But yeah, I would be fine with Oko being unbanned. Some people aren't, but I personally never saw Oko as too huge of a problem, because again, I played control decks. I see other cards as problematic. So, those were the 3 big cards, and now there's not exactly overpowered cards left, but, you know, they're questionable cards and, you know, a little bit of move. So, let's start with Luca. Luca is a completely shit tier planeswalker, but his -2 reads get Agent of Treachery for free. And that's what it does. Luca is hated just because he empowers Agent of Treachery even more. We made even a deck about this. Now, Agent of Treachery decks, in my opinion, in Arena are 100% the best and most reliable decks ever, because most Agent of Treachery, Resurrection combos and whatnot will 100% feature cards that are good against counter aggro and that are relatively decent against like Spell Slinger type of decks and whatnot and whatnot. So Agent of Treachery makes Luca OP. Because let's be real, does anyone care if Luca summons an Enrace Forerunner? No. If Luca summons an Enrace Forerunner, chances are you already probably lost the game, and that's just like the cherry on the top. No. Everyone hates Luca just because he's empowering Agent of Treachery as a reliable play. And the only reason Agent of Treachery decks are not, well, Resurrection Agent of Treachery decks are not the most overpowered thing, and no, everyone's hating on it, is because Arena fixes the matches. Arena 100% knows and understands that Resurrection Agent of Treachery decks are overpowered, and the only way that they can fix them is if they put all the Agent of Treacheries at the bottom 20 cards. But Luca kind of semi-circumvents that. Now obviously there are ways to not circumvent it, but Luca pretty much circumvents that a lot. But admittedly, playing a Luca Agent of Treachery deck just leaves a sour taste in my mouth, so I don't do it. But yeah, Luca, not overpowered, a pretty mediocre mech style of Planeswalker in my opinion. But again, since it's used for Agent of Treachery, it's overpowered. But that's the distinction. Luca, not overpowered, but because he works in tandem with Agent of Treachery, he's overpowered. And that's a problem. Second of all, Trollbjorn. Trollbjorn is arguably one of the fourth overpowered card. If you drop this guy on curve with an aggro deck, chances are you just flat out won the game. And also, he scales with Embercleave and everything. So it's a problematic card for sure. It's a lot problematic. Suddenly those 4/1/1s deal not 4 damage, but 12 damage. Suddenly those 4/1/1s attacking with a... what's the enchantment called? I always forget for some reason. Cultivate of Calamity. Suddenly extra 12 damage. And it's impossible to counter. That's like the thing. This card is insanely overpowered, but again, it can be removed before it does damage. But with Embercleave, well, Embercleave can also technically be removed before it does damage. But it's a little bit of a lot different story in that situation, so, you know, take that with a grain of salt. But yeah, Trollbjorn, pretty overpowered. Maybe not the most overpowered thing because no one likes playing him, because at least he balances out in the fact that he is slow and he cannot be cheated out and so on. Embercleave can be cheated out on turn 3 and on turn 4 with Onyx it can even deal 12 damage. Agent of Treachery can be cheated out as fast as turn 4, and with the Ram decks, well, turn 4 or 5 or whatever. And Agent of Treachery is broken, and I hate it a lot. Because you know what Agent of Treachery does? It steals my gifts of Paradisio, and that's absolutely unacceptable in my mind. But moving on. Then we have seriously problematic cards like Trefari Time Raveler. It's a 3-cost card, with which flat out will instantaneously just end the game against a couple of control decks and against counterspell decks. Also, Trefari dropped on curve against other decks, just essentially gives you a +1 draw card and a free turn, because the enemy needs to replay the same card they have already dropped, and if it doesn't have a hits the battlefield effect, then, you know, it does nothing. So yeah, and then you still need to deal with the Trefari. Admittedly, maybe he has only 1 HP left, but still, you still need to take a turn and deal with him. And again, when you are playing a counterspell deck, on average, previously it was like this. when we were playing a counter spell mirror, the first person to win was in a lot of cases the first person to get like 5 or 6 mana. Because when you're playing a counter spell deck against a counter spell deck, 5 or 6 mana means the following. You can drop your threat, and you can counter spell still the enemy's counter spell. And that was the essentially luck factor of counterspell versus counterspell. Who had the better hand at turn 5 or 6? Depends on obviously the match, but that was pretty much always that. But now it's the situation where, hey, I go first. You don't have a 2-costing counterspell. I drop Trefari, insta win. Yeah. So Trefari is a problem. He's obviously not a huge problem because people don't see it as a problem just because of the fact that not a lot of people play counterspell decks at the moment. So that's why he doesn't have that much hate. But he still has a lot of hate. A lot of people hate him. Admittedly, is he overpowered? In certain matchups, 100%. If you remember this, I have made decks where I just say, yeah, if he drops a Trefari on curve, I'm just gonna surrender. Because I can't win off of that point if he gets so much advantage that early on. So Trefari is problematic. And then we have Annex, which is, again, a hugely overpowered, well, no, it's a hugely problematic card. But red is always a problem because every season Wizards obviously print out a new red card that is completely bonkers insane. And Annex is one of those situations. And again, this is from a control player's perspective. Why is Annex problematic? Well, first of all, that he can do 12 damage on turn 4 with Embercleave, which no one probably goddamn likes. But second of all, when you're playing a control deck against a red aggro deck, usually, you don't make a control deck around the simple fact that I'm gonna be counter-playing red decks now, and that's all I'm gonna do. No, you kinda go for the mid-range value type of decks when you make a control deck. And Annex completely fucks it up. Because on average, most of the times, what will determine does a control deck win against a red deck is simply the fact: did you survive until turn 4? And did you get to play your rat spell? That's it. And Onyx is problematic because as soon as he is dropped, he negates rat spells. For control, again, it's just the issue of finding the rat spell, and if you cast it on a good time where it goes like 1/4/2 or 1/4/3 or maybe 1/4/4, you're gonna win. Annex completely negates this. When Onyx is dropped on the field, as a control player, unless you're exiling everything, you must target Onyx. As soon as Onyx is dropped, Vipes don't matter anymore. Because again, Onyx makes Satires, and for an aggro deck, well, just the Satires are good enough essentially against the control deck. And if you don't have a second rat, well, you most likely die. And when you wipe them, because we currently have absolutely no reasonably normal instant rat spells, well, those Satires are gonna get to attack. And chances are, that's like 5 damage. So you're not breaking you have no chances of winning unless you're playing a second rat spell after the first one. Because of Onyx. So yeah, some red decks now have the chance of just flat out winning games for free against control because they dropped an Onyx on turn 3. And now you need to deal with Onyx or otherwise you're fucked. And when you deal with Onyx, the red deck still gets one free turn of attacking your face, and usually that's the difference maker between life or death. Then we have white life gain decks, which are again problematic because of Heliod. Because life gain white aggro decks are just stupid. If you get a healing pigeon on turn 1 and then Johnny's Pridemate on turn 2, well, chances are you just won the game right there if the Ajani's Pridemate just does not instantly die. But now you have a Heliod, which prevents the necessity of drawing that Ajani's Pridemate. Now you can also draw a Heliod, and considering how overstacked White currently is with Imperial Oligarchs and Daxoses and whatnot, and with all those creatures that have inbuilt protection and lifelink, yeah, you no longer are relying on Ajani. You are just relying on getting a Heliod, and then you can distribute those tokens where you want it. And gods in general have a problem with the fact that they're indestructible. Oh yeah, maybe you could have dealt with the fact that, you know, there's a 50-50 Ajani's Pridemate, but no. That motherfucker Heliod is attacking you for a bare minimum of 5-5, and now you need to sacrifice a blocker. Yeah, that's a little bit of a tough situation, and again, problematic. Because currently, the only way you can deal with indestructible enchantments is exile or minus counters. And let me tell you something. Not a lot of decks currently run, reliable exile and minus counter generation. So that's a huge issue. Is it overpowered? No, you still need to be lucky with it. So, it's kind of on the fritz there. But the same goes for Onyx and Trefari and Trollbjorn. Again, these are not maybe the most overpowered cards, but they are definitely problematic cards and complete busts design-wise, in my opinion. So yeah, and then we have, well, it's not really overpowered. No one considers Cauldron Familiar and Witch's Oven overpowered. But this is the bad decision-making printings, because, well, if you're playing a non-aggro deck, and you're playing against the Cat Oven deck, and turn 1 is the Cauldron Familiar, and turn 2 is the Witch's Oven, you're probably not happy, because, well, that's the whole combo. That's what Cat Oven decks go for, and that's what's gonna happen. And without Graveyard Hate, or Artifact Destruction, you're not getting rid of the Familiar. Ever. So, that's a huge, huge problem. Is it overpowered? No, not really. But is it super annoying to lose against a Cauldron, a Cat Oven deck? Yes, yes it is. Especially if I see a Cauldron Familiar and 2 Witch's Ovens at turn 2. I am just freaking out at that point. And then, there's this card, Overflowing Insight. Now, if I press on what the hell do I press to see what kind of format I am playing? Okay, here it is. As you can see, I am playing currently Standard, but for some reason, when you go to Filters and go here and pick Sorceries, Overflowing Insight can be added and you're still playing Standard. And if you take a look at the Overflowing Insight icon, well, that icon is Ixalan. And Ixalan shows, it kind of belongs to Historic. So I don't exactly know why you can play Overflowing Insight. Maybe you can't play it. Maybe it's... I have no idea. It's probably a bug. And then we have the hugest of problems that usually goes undetected by most people. And that is cards like Kinan Bonder Prodigy. This card is absolutely disgusting. It is filthy. I don't care how good it is. It looks disgusting. Get that filth out of my sights. Oh, I already goddamn tolerated this thing. I already wait, let's filter a little bit. Teros, yeah, I even know what goddamn Rumpelstiltskin, from which goddamn set he is. Look at this ugly mofo. Oh, someone needs to address this. Ugly cards? No. I want big booty bitches. I want to see good things. I want to see hot things. I don't want to see any ugly ass whatever the hell this feature is. Look at his leg. Look at that disgusting thing. Look at this guy. Look at him. And he's fucking happy. Oh, Jesus Christ. Oh, God. Why? Why do cards like this exist? You know, look at this. Look at this. Look. Look. Why can't I find it? Planes? Oh, because it's not the Teros card. Look at this. Narset part disgusting. Absolutely 100% disgusting. Why? Why does someone make art like this? Why? It is absolutely gruesome. Why can't we have like 1,000,000 sexy Kioras? No, someone needs to make a bonded prodigy that looks like a fucking muffin top. Oh god. Anyway, that's it for this video, pretty much. I said all that I wanted to say. I still hope they ban all the companions. But first, let me make a Keruga? But first, let me make a Keruga deck, and then you can ban all the companions. Okay, wizards? Great. Okay, so this was Quizzer Sen. Thanks for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already. Oh, and also let me make a second Garugamesh video, which will be the exact same deck that I made previously, but I really like the deck, so, you know, let me milk that a little bit also. And then ban all the companions, because they're and you know what? Yorion also one more time. One more time Yorion. So, you know, keep that ban hammer not banning until I make those 3 videos again. Okay? Oh no. Also, we could... by the time I'm gonna make this, and this video, we will probably be able to milk a Lurus deck once again. So, wizards, ban all of this crap because I hate it, but please wait until I milk this a little bit more. Anyway, this was Quizzer Sen. Thanks for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already. Check out the channel, check out the Discord, check out the Patreon, and have a nice day. Bye-bye.